first off, just want to say thank you for covering us and being here throughout the spring. And appreciate the coverage and the messaging that y'all get out to our fan base, which is critical for us. Obviously, just to hit, straightforward, we have had a few portal entries, and I anticipate we'll have a few more. I don't anticipate it'll be more than 8, but you never know. It's just part of what college football is right now. And so I think we were one over scholarship-wise. I think we were in 86. Potentially would have been 86 with all the freshmen coming in. So after one, then we will be looking to replace portal for portal entry, just so everybody can be up to date on that. And once we have those finalized, we'll let you know. I think portal opens April 15th. I'm not even quite sure. I think it's tax day. Is tax day and portal day the same day? Probably so. Okay. Anyway, first start with our defense. Post-spring evaluation, just really impressed with the way this group went about their business. Obviously, you start with returning starters, and impressed with the number of returning starters we have. This is really for them, their 4th year in the system, because every coordinator we've asked to keep the same terminology and system in place, but obviously they're now more accustomed to their coordinator and position coaches, and so I think they have taken more ownership of the defensive group. But then anytime you add in the transfers and dynamic transfers and depth that we have, very, very confident, comfortable within our defensive scheme. You talk about our defensive ends first with Zion Young returning, and then you add Damon Wilson, Langdon Kitchen, Nate Johnson. You have returning Ja'Kai Lang. You have, coming off an injury, Darius Smith. You have an early enrollee in Javion Hilson. And that is a group that has an incredible amount of depth, talent, got the ability to stop the run, rush the passer, really affect and influence the game at a really, really important level. I don't think that's the right adjective, but really very exciting. And then you combine that with the defensive tackles. Obviously, Chris McClellan coming back, Sterling Webb, both were very, had a lot of plays, played a lot of games, very impactful in the games they played. Really encouraging and challenging both Jalen Marshall and Marquise Graciel to take that next step. They've been, in the rotation and kind of waiting their turn. We don't need them to wait any longer. It's their time to play. Marquise has really improved with his weight, getting his weight more under control, and so that he can be more explosive and continuing find that next disruptive player. We really are challenging Jalen Marshall. He's got all the potential in the world to be a dominant football player, but he's got to want it more every single day, and so we're challenging him to do that. Obviously, Sam Williams coming back. He played just a little bit last year, and then moving Elias Williams into that defensive tackle position. He's actually a guy that throughout the spring flashed for us, and very, very impressed with his growth. There is a healthy competition in the defensive tackle room, and if our edges are as good as we believe they are, it's going to only create more opportunities for our defensive tackles with one-on-one blocks. So really need those guys to continue to move forward. At the linebacker position, obviously, we got the fortunate news to return Tristan Newsome, who has been an outstanding player for us for really since the mid-season 2 years ago when he took over after Hopper's injury. You got Khalil Jacobs coming back off of injury, who is, I think, really utilized that injury as an opportunity for him to grow, not only with his knowledge of the game, but also his off-the-field nutrition and strength and conditioning. He's explosive. He's a guy that's really impacted this football team from a leadership standpoint. Really proud of him. Obviously, you're adding Josiah Trotter, who was a freshman All-American a couple years ago and really an impactful player, just a dynamic downhill, everything that we had expected him to be and more. I think Nick Rodriguez probably had the best spring of anybody on the defensive side of the ball. His playmaking ability at the linebacker position was remarkable throughout spring, really challenging to block. I think him and Coach Nicholson really hit it off. His instinctual play, physicality has been remarkable to watch, and his ability to contribute dynamic blitzer. Jeremiah Beasley is another guy, JB, that really stepped up. Him and Nick, played a lot on special teams last year and in certain packages. Man, those two guys have really taken that next step. And so that linebacker group, very deep, and very impactful. And you even got guys like Brian Huff and Dante McClellan, who's a true freshman. I look for that room to be as deep and as impactful as the edge position. Safety position, a lot of great competition. Marvin Burks was limited throughout the spring just because of a shoulder injury, but still got a bunch of reps. Obviously, a premium for us on letting these guys, those three positions, try to be interchangeable, find the best combination. And Jaylen Catalon, we are really, really glad we got him. Just a guy that's an instinctual player, violent player. Man, he could have ball across the middle. I would hate to be a wide receiver with him around because he did an excellent job. You can tell his veteran presence and understanding of the game by not taking some shots on our defenseless players. But man, he is going to be a very impactful player. Obviously, Dalen Carnell continues to be I thought he had his best spring since he was here. His sense of urgency, his command of the defense, his competitive spirit, his wanting to be a leader on that side of the ball, I think really impacted him. And then you look at, newcomer Greco. I thought Trajan had an outstanding spring, probably led the team in takeaways in the spring if I had to recount it. And then you've got the Santana banner. You got Mose Phillips, who came in. You got Jackson Hancock. You got Flagg. All those guys found ways to impact the defense. And then at the corner position, Drayton Norwood was beat up a lot during spring, which was a positive for everybody else because that allowed Stephen Hall, Toriano Pride, Nick DeLoach, Cam Keys, Mark Manford, a true freshman, to get in there and really get going at that position. So very excited about those guys. And like I said, I thought consistently the defense was ahead of the offense. I anticipated that would be the case because of the quarterback battle and the lack of continuity with so many guys on the offensive side of the ball getting reps. But man, that side of the ball was really good for us this spring, and very excited about what they can continue to do. The challenge for them is to not get complacent, not to compare themselves to our offense, but to compare themselves to what the best version of them can be. And I've challenged our defensive staff to really push these guys every single opportunity that they have during the month of April. June will be a really impactful month for us too as we enter OTAs. On the offensive side of the ball, I told every quarterback that we would not name a starting quarterback coming out of spring. I didn't feel like it was fair to those guys to put that pressure on them, especially with Matt and Bo being new. But I also knew that the spring would be important to tell us where the competition was by the end of spring and who had kind of emerged as the leaders of that competition. I was very impressed with Matt Zollers. There was a time at the first of his injuries where we didn't think he would be released for spring practice, but he did an excellent job. I think him being an early enrollee, getting here, getting with Zach and Russ, I'm very impressed with where he's at throughout spring, and know that every bit of arm talent, natural leadership ability, athleticism, playmaking ability is there, and look forward to watching him develop. But with that being said, it was clear to us after probably the first week and a half of spring that the competition is between Bo and Sam, and those two guys will be the primary two pushing to be the starting quarterback. Sam obviously is back from his Tommy John surgery, and I thought he took advantage of his rehab reps in the bowl practice and really continued that throughout spring. I thought he managed the offense well, led really well, made good decisions, solid decisions, obviously bounced back from his, when he would make a mistake, didn't let it carry over. And I thought he took the competition with Bo really well. Bo was every bit what we expected. And in fact, I think he was a better passer than we had anticipated. I remember practice number 3, he went out there and lit the defense up in Skelly in a team period and think he had 4 touchdowns on that day and was named Offensive Player of the Day. In the very next practice, Sam came back and battled back and was named Offensive Player of the Day, and I think he had 3 touchdowns. And so it was awesome to watch the back and forth in those guys. I knew Bo would have a little bit of a, still learning the offense, but was impressed with how much he's already understanding it and knew it and grabbed a hold of it. Excellent leader, very dynamic with his feet, sound, solid decision maker, and so very excited about those 2 guys continuing to lead. And like I told them, from this point on, everything's judged. How they approach walkthroughs, how they approach the team in the team meetings, how they handle themselves in workouts. All of it is going to help determine who becomes the next starting quarterback. With that being said, Sam is still actively rehabbing his baseball. In fact, I think I know he threw a bullpen Saturday. He throws another one on Wednesday, and anticipate that he will be back to pitch this season sometime for Mizzou baseball, if that's in Coach Jackson's plans. So he is working to rehab back, and we're working with him and the baseball program and with his doctor's orders to get him back up to speed. And I've been very impressed with the way he's handled himself doing both. On the wide receivers, man, Kevin Coleman's everything you want him to be as a slot, dynamic player, really tough covering man-to-man. Really felt like he had a good spring getting to know those quarterbacks. Been impressed with our freshman, Donovan. I think really stood out in a positive way. Big time catch radius. I know y'all saw the one-handed catch on Twitter, but that wasn't new to anybody. That was pretty much every practice. He was making wow plays, and so he will push Marquise and Josh and James Madison, Prez to be a force on the outside. Obviously, you can't just play with one wide receiver. Is this yours? Toriano's want to get hold of me. Sorry. Tight end, Brett recovering from shoulder surgery, so he was able to do all the non-contact, but wasn't able to have contact this spring. Jordan Harris, Vince. Jude James was a guy who really came along. Look for Jude to be an important, impactful piece for us. I thought he did an excellent job embracing special teams and was very impressed with his continued growth for us. The running back position, Jamal Roberts, Mr. Dependable. Ahmad Hardy comes along, teaches his teammates how to ride a horse and carry the outside zone. It's been impressive to watch him on Twitter riding horses as much as it's been impressive to watch him on film. He does an excellent job with both. Marquise Davis, excellent runner, a guy who is going to have an impact as a true freshman. Feel like he's going to be able to provide us with some added depth and explosiveness at the running back position. Offensive line is still a work in progress. Obviously, Connor Tolson's not back, so Dom Judice took a predominant amount of snaps at center until the last week when we had him and Tristan switch. Working primarily Javen Richardson and Johnny at left tackle, with Javen getting most of the reps at the 1. Keegan has solidified himself as the starting right tackle, and I would anticipate that how it would look in fall. But got to continue to work to get the best 5 out there. Logan Reichert missed most of spring because of that foot injury. He should be back next week, and so want to give him an opportunity to compete. He's got a lot of big time ability, and so we want to give him an opportunity to compete, potentially at the left tackle or right guard position. And so not finalized too many spots just yet at that position. I think specialist, very impressed with Connor Westerman. I mean, he had an outstanding spring punting the football, and that's what SEC punters are supposed to look like from a hang time and distance and combination. And then Blake Craig, it was very consistent, somebody that we're continuing to work on consistency on a day-to-day basis, but pleased with where we're at with the specialist. Again, the challenge for us is we want to do something that's never been done before at the University of Missouri. And that's play for or win an SEC championship, participate in a playoff, and or be the first time in school history to have 3 10-win seasons in a row. And that's a challenge. It's going to be hard, but we embrace it, and we embrace the chase and embrace the opportunity to do something that's never been done before, which goes along with doing core value number one, which is always compete to do it better than it's ever been done before. So that's the message to our team. Complacency will kill us. Being comfortable will kill us. So we are challenging ourselves as we're in this April speed power block with the athletic training and grow track with individual self-improvement through our player development program on Wednesdays, our leadership classes on Wednesdays, our fatherhood classes on Mondays, our walkthroughs on Fridays. All of this is an avenue for us to continue to improve, to do something that's never been done before. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. He's calling another time. He might want to, it sounds like an emergency.
Eli, I think you covered every player on the current roster. So I want to ask you, with the draft coming up, how big of a deal for your program and the ability to sell it would it be to have 2 kids go in the first round?
Yeah, it's something we don't control. Obviously, I believe both of those guys have earned and deserve the opportunity to go in the first round. I believe those guys are impactful players and know that both of them are going to have a positive impact on whichever organization they have. But whether or not they go in the first round or get drafted, it's going to have a positive influence on our university and our football team and our program. Just because you're talking about 2 great players from both of the 2 large metropolitan cities that represent the University of Missouri that when we took this job, we said, hey, we've got to get the best players from Kansas City and the best players from St. Louis, and I think that's those will be the first 2 players drafted from Kansas City and St. Louis in this year's draft, which means we got the best 2 players there. And so, I can't predict what people are going to say. I can't predict, what negative energy Todd McShay's going to say about our guys. So I'm not going to let that influence, the positive effect that they're going to have on our program moving forward.
Eli, I'm curious, obviously Sam's been working behind Brady for so many years, but what kind of seeing him be more vocal in this spring camp, what kind of leadership qualities did you see from him in his growth and also from Bo as well?
Yeah, I think we talk about in the quarterback competition that when you say you're a quarterback, you're represented by the guy who's actually on the field, right? So if you're I play quarterback at the University of Missouri. Well, they all view you through the lens of the quarterback that's on the field, and so your job, if you're not the starter, is to support the starter and give him your, positive energy, give him what he needs. If he gives you, hey, tell me what they do on third downs, or watch this look and tell me what they do in 2 minutes. I think Sam really embraced that, and you can either get disenfranchised and bitter, or you can embrace your role as a teammate. And I think Sam really did that for the last 2 years, even in his injury. We traveled Sam the last 6 weeks of the season just so he could continue to be around the team and know what it looks like to be on the road as a quarterback. And Sam's always been a guy that the guys get along with and been a great teammate. And now it's just his opportunity to compete for the job and adopt some of those things that Brady did really well from a leadership standpoint, but also just be him, be uniquely him. And he knows what that looks like. We're talking about a guy who led his team to the state championship in the state of Georgia and was on a team. When I went and watched him play his high school game, he was the best player on the field. And Travis was on the field too, but Sam Horn was the best player on the field. So he knows what it looks like and has that leadership and confidence. And I think you put that on display. And I think, he's a competitor, and he knows that Bo is here to be the starting quarterback too. And those 2 guys have had a really good competition in the right kind of way. And I told both of them, our team is going to either thrive because of this competition or to be divided because of this competition. And that's going to be reflective on how you 2 handle it. And I think both of them have done a really good job of cheering for each other, challenging each other, but also connecting with each other as teammates. And it's been fun to watch.
Coach, you talked about RDU as one of the top-rated running backs coming out of the portal. He's continued that here now in spring camp. What does that say about yours and Coach Luper's recruiting of running backs and development?
Yeah, I think it really speaks more to Coach Luper and his ability to get the best out of the players that he has. This is really several years in a row, whether you're talking about Larry Roundtree or Tyler Beatty or Cody Schrader or Nate Noel and now Ahmad Hardy or Jamal Roberts or Marquise Davis for that matter, that those guys are going to get opportunities and they're going to impact the game and they're going to get the football and they're going to run outside zone at elite level. The cool thing about Ahmad was I was able to call Brian Vinson, who's a friend of mine who I've known for a while in this profession. We've actually clinicked and talked outside zone together several times. So I was able to call him and ask him about Ahmad and what his thoughts were. And I hope that people would speak as highly of me, when they call about me to my assistant coaches. That guy couldn't say enough positive things about Ahmad as a teammate, as a player, as a young man, and was happy for his success. And so that really made us really excited to be able to add him.
Coach, you mentioned that
positional versatility looms so large in the secondary. So Jaylen has that, and then there's the experience, there's the leadership. So what have you seen in those departments from him so far?
Well, I think the experience just shows, playing safety and playing quarterback are very similar. That's why I think you see safeties be able to move over to play quarterback, or quarterbacks move over to play safety, because they understand route combinations. They understand, okay, if this is what's happening here, this is what I can anticipate coming on the backside. And man, he just knows that. He was able to bait our quarterbacks into a couple of bad looks. He was able to bait the offensive linemen into making calls on blitzes when he was just bluffing and not showing. He was able to blitz and not be seen and make TFLs in the backfield. So he's a guy that just has instincts and knowledge because of the amount of experience that he has playing the game. And from a leadership standpoint, he's hungry to win. And obviously his experience last year at UNLV with Coach Odom and being able to get that program turned in the right direction was huge for him. But now he wants to come back into our league and do it at another level. And I think he's really enjoyed all the amenities that we have and the brotherhood that we have, and I think he's been able to add to it in a positive way.
Coach, you mentioned the portal vision a little bit there to start, but are there specific positions that you're viewing as spots you want to add when this window opens?
No, not necessarily. I feel very strongly and content, maybe it's not the right word, but very confident in our football team right now. I think we have a very talented football team. I think we have a very cohesive football team. So unless there's a huge surprise, which I haven't seen so far, I don't anticipate that we have to go get this position or that position. But, if somebody leaves, then that provides us an opportunity either A, to add the best player available, or maybe B, to add a younger guy who can come in and develop, or, if we feel like we need to create some competition because players aren't achieving at the level that we want them to, and we need to challenge them, because the only thing better than a little competition is a lot of competition, then we may factor that into consideration. Anybody that can help us win the SEC championship, we would be open to taking out of the pool.
Coach, you mentioned Jaylen's play style already, along with hard hitters like Dalen and Marvin and Mekhi at linebacker as well. Is that part of the defensive identity that you want to build this year?
Yeah, physicality and toughness is something that we always thrive to have on the defensive side of the ball. But, toughness is in a football team, right? Tough football teams run the ball, stop the run, and cover kicks, and that's measured in a very easy way. Did you win the rushing battle? Did you stop the rushing battle? And did you win the hidden yardage battle and coverage? But there's also a level of physicality that we want to continue to play with. I thought, really for the last couple of years, our safeties have been, JC obviously was a big-time hitter at the safety position. I think Joe Charleston had several. Obviously, Dalen Carnell was able to knock a few players out of games this past year, and so that's always been a brand of football that we play with. But I think Jaylen adds a little bit more to it. When you said Jaylen, we're starting to get a number of same players, multiple names on the team. So you got a Catalon or Marshall. If you say Marquise, I got like 3 now. So we got quite a few we got to dig through.
Coach, was there a position that maybe did a little bit better than expected, that you was unsure of, and kind of showed maybe you don't have to make a move in the portal if you do?
I will say this: I'm as confident in each position on our roster right now as I've ever been. There's not any position that I lay my head on my pillow and am nervous about. Within the framework of control, right? I get nervous about things I can't control, but I think the abundance of depth, the abundance of scheme adjustment that we have, now it's just about continually defining what they do best and push in that direction. But when you're talking about the defensive side of the ball, I think there's 6 to 7 legit edges that will earn playing time. You know, Darius Smith, prior to his injury, was as impactful a defensive end as I've been around. And, you know, now you get him back healthy with a guy who's as dynamic and explosive a pass rusher in Dane Wilson. You know, we know what Zion Young can do. We know Ja'Kai Lang's got multiple sacks in SEC games. You got Langdon Kitchen, who is a really, really good football player. Javion Hilson, as a true freshman, early enrollee, has earned an opportunity to find a role. Nate Johnson was a freshman All-American and just ran a 1.10 fly 10 split, which was 5th on the team. The only 2 guys that were 2 of the 5 that were faster than him were Dane Wilson and Darius Smith. So I mean that room is impressive. And then I say, you know, then D. Nick will talk about the linebackers, and you're talking about, you know, Tristan Newsome and Khalil Jacobs and Josiah Trotter and Nick Rodriguez and Jeremiah Beasley and Brian Huff, and I think Dante McClellan's got some really natural instincts at that position. So feel very confident about our front 7. You know, you got the star who's at the star position. Dalen Carnell's going to be a 3-year starter. So a lot of guys back who've been making plays consistently at a high level. So far so good. We got to keep getting better. Got to keep getting better. Got to keep getting better though.
Coach, look at the 3 quarterbacks. I mean, you mentioned they're all talented in their own way. It's been a while since any of them started. As you're doing all these evaluations, what do you look at to try to narrow down that intangible of being the guy who should start?
Yeah, you know, what's the old saying? When the student's ready, the teacher will appear, right? I think that's kind of how the quarterback position, the team's going to know when the starting quarterback's the guy, you know, when everybody's following him, and there's just that confidence that when he's on the field, we're going to get the job done. I think that the biggest thing about starting is the reps and experience, so you don't make the same mistake twice, right? Like, you know, there was a confidence in Brady that there wasn't going to be something that he hadn't seen before. You kind of knew how he was going to respond to certain situations. And that's the challenge with these guys, is we don't know necessarily how they're going to respond. I think for all of them, what they have to do is embrace what they do know. You know, Bo's played in a lot of football games. It's not going to be too big of a moment for him. Sam Warren is going to get up on a mound and pitch with every baseball scout from the major leagues out there watching him. So the moment's not going to be too big for him. To me, it's about, can they learn from the mistakes they've made so they don't have to make them in a game. You know, Brady threw a lot of picks and made some questionable decisions his first year starting. Took a lot of heat for it, but we knew the next year, once he earned the job again, he wouldn't make the same mistake twice. And so I think the challenge for those guys, which I told them, is what I need to see is when you throw an interception in the red zone, do you learn from it? Because if you make that mistake again, you can't be the starting quarterback. Like, there's not any one play that's going to define you as a starter, but there are going to be plays that say you're disqualified to be the starting quarterback with that decision making. And so far so good. I think again with Bo and Sam, they haven't made those decisions that you go, yeah, that's the same mistake he's continually making. He just can't learn from it.
Coach, what specifically have you seen from Keegan at that right tackle spot that's helped him solidify that role?
Yeah, you know, I think for me, it was a little bit hard to know on tape how physical and how athletic he was, just because of the style of scheme that he was playing in last year. But again, watching him go against some of the best defensive ends in the country, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I'm going to put it out there and put those guys and make Coach Early sweat with it. But watching him compete, watching him be physical, watching him play against those guys, get beat, respond. He's got athleticism, he's got toughness, he's got a lot of playing experience, and so I feel very confident he can man that side and hold his own.
What are the challenges of kind of a heavily portaled line there? You could have 3 or 4 guys that are coming into the squad for the first year. What are the challenges of getting that to mesh in kind of a short period of time?
I mean, you got to get 5 playing as one. It's really no different than what we've had every year. You know, 2 years ago, we had a brand new O-line coach who was introduced after spring football, and that turned out to be one of the best offensive lines we've had since we've been here. So it's about accelerating trust amongst the group, and I think Coach Jones will have that, but obviously Connor Tolleson with his experience at center, he should be standing next to a left guard who's got 2 years of playing with him. Dom should potentially be. Ooh, got to get my I voted sticker. Can't look at that. Dom Judice, who's played a ton of football at the University of Michigan. Keegan's played a ton of football. Javen hasn't played quite as much just yet, but he's played in a few games. So it really is not about those five working together as so much as the experience they have in communication. And again, I knew the defense would be ahead of us, and there were times when it was bad. It was shelter in place, but there was a resolve in those guys' eyes that I feel confident in what they're going to be moving forward.
Coach, most of us were able to view Drew Pine only through the lens, obviously, of what we saw on the field. But
Yeah.
Can you kind of encapsulate what he meant to this program during his tenure here?
Yeah, I mean, Drew was an excellent teammate, was an outstanding individual, a guy who embraced his role, exhibited what it meant to have an elite edge for us, brought energy every day, detailed in his work, was gritty when we really needed it, and was consistent every single day in his approach. Like I told him when we talked about his situation, it's going to be hard to top. The last pass you threw was a touchdown to Theo Weiss to win the Oklahoma game, and it's not very many opportunities that you're going to have that. When he comes back here, he'll always remember being in that locker room getting a game ball and helping us beat Oklahoma. So wish him absolutely the best. It was his desire and dream to really want to play in a more meaningful role, and certainly that's understandable, and that's what the portal's all about, is giving these players freedom of opportunity to pursue what they want, and he did it the right way. And so I've had several calls about him, several schools reaching out to me, but was happy that he found Bowling Green, and that's the right fit for him.
Eli, I think every year you've had this job, there's been some seismic change in college sports. How much time have you spent having to, whatever happens this week, adjust, or are you at the point where, hey, tell me what we're doing and I'll figure out how to do it?
Man, I've been in both of those games, to be honest. I think it's a great question. I spend a ton of time trying to figure out the new revenue share system and how are you going to divide the money and the cap, and what are we going to do for NIL, and how do we get to 105? And then yesterday the judge says we may grandfather in roster limits. So I don't know what the crap's going on, and you waste a lot of mental energy. And I've heard a lot of players. We told all our guys in December, this is what we think the new framework's going to be. And now if they go back to grandfathering it in, it's it's just frustrating. Let the practitioners have a say in what we're doing instead of, I'm not going there anymore, but we'll adapt. We'll adapt to whatever they say. We'll find a way. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But my hope is that we understand this is an unbelievable game. College athletics is a worthwhile fabric of the culture of the United States of America. Not just football, not just basketball, not just revenue-generating sports, but also the Olympic sports. They all matter. And we need to have some sort of governing structure that doesn't have a lawsuit every stinking day. I get it, but man, we can't have a lawsuit every single day that dramatically shifts the rules. So we have to have some sort of protection so that we can move forward with a great game. I mean, last night was phenomenal to watch. The Final Four was so awesome to watch. The entire tournament was enjoyable. College football is enjoyable. Watching, shout out to Shannon and our women's gymnastics team. Watching with my daughters on Sunday night our women's gymnastics team qualify for the Elite Eight in the national championship in Fort Worth is phenomenal. Please, 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 whoever's in charge, I don't know who's in charge, nobody knows who's in charge, can we get some sort of structure in place that we don't have to have lawsuits every single day that changes how we operate, so that we can continue this awesome opportunity that we have for these students to have scholarships to get an education, but also the joy that we can bring to the fan base and to the people of this country.
Seeing a few teams around the country turn to GMs
Yeah,
to do
GMs.
this? Is that something you've considered? Is that
No.
something you thought about with it?
No, because I don't even know if we have a structure in place. I was waiting. Honestly, I haven't made any of those decisions yet. One, that would be a conversation Laird and I would have to have, because some places the GM's firing the head coach, so, I don't necessarily know if I wanna, hire somebody that can fire me. That'd be dumb, right? But, again, this goes back to, I don't know what the rules are. I don't know. If that's the structure that we go down because of the new settlement that's in place, then, yeah, awesome. I think that's something that would make a lot of sense. If there was a partner that needed to partner with me and handle a little bit more of the business structure side of it, great. But until I really know what that looks like, I think there's not, I think there's a rush to to do that. And I'm not gonna get into it, but not yet.
Thank you.
That'll conclude us today, guys.